Have you ever watched a loved one slowly become a stranger, right inside the very home they once built? I am living that experience every day, every moment, watching my father, once the rock of our family, get swept away by the hazy fog of cognitive decline. At first, I thought it was just normal aging. He would forget to turn off the stove or ask the same question repeatedly, but then one day he held the TV remote, not knowing what to press. He looked at his own familiar jacket and asked, "Whose is this?" I was so scared and so confused. Not until my mother and I took him for a checkup, and the geriatrician told us 5 hard truths, the very ones that helped me understand what was happening to my dad. My dear friend, if you are living with an elderly loved one or feel they have been not themselves lately, please do not ignore the small signs. Because sometimes cognitive decline does not start with a stroke, but with silence. When a person stops telling stories, stops laughing, stops asking about your day. The most heartbreaking part is this: they do not realize what is changing, while you see it all piece by piece. And if we do not understand, do not act in time, we will lose them fragment by fragment, even while they are still sitting right in front of us. In this video, I will share with you the 5 things that truly awakened me. 5 things the geriatrician said about my father, which may also be true for your loved one. I am not telling this story to make you sad, but to prepare you, to help you love them the right way before it is too late. If you are ready, let us begin. Number 1, he no longer recognizes small changes in his daily life. The first sign the geriatrician mentioned, in the one we had overlooked, was that my father no longer noticed small changes in his daily routines. Things he used to be meticulous about, like checking his doctor's appointments, changing the water in the flower vase every Sunday morning, or carefully folding his face towel exactly the way he liked. Suddenly, everything became chaotic. Appointments were forgotten, meals were missed, he wore clothes for the wrong season. Yet he still believed, "I'm doing things just like I always have." When I asked, "Dad, did you forget anything?" he answered confidently, "No, everything's fine." And that is what made my heart sink, because he did not just forget, he did not realize he was forgetting. According to his doctor, this is one of the earliest but most silent features of cognitive decline, a lack of awareness of the lapses in one's own daily life. Short-term memory, familiar tasks, daily action sequences, all are being processed more slowly or erratically by the brain, without the person realizing it. This makes family members feel both worried and helpless, because you see everything going off track, but your loved one insists, "I'm still perfectly normal." I remember one afternoon, my father put the electric kettle on and then went outside to water the garden. It was not until I smelled burning plastic that I discovered the kettle had boiled dry. When I mentioned it, he got flustered and changed the subject. Seeing the look in his eyes then, not anger but embarrassment and confusion, I realized this was no longer simple forgetfulness. If you start seeing small changes like this in a loved one, do not rush to blame them for being careless or think that's just what happens when you get old. Gently observe, take notes, and seek advice from a professional. Because when someone can no longer control the smallest things, they need us to support them, subtly and quietly, more than ever before. Number 2, communication fades because he cannot find the words to speak. The second sign the doctor pointed out, which truly left a lump in my throat, was that my father gradually stopped talking as much, not because he did not want to, but because he could not find the right words to say. He used to be the most charming storyteller in our house. Every dinner was a little play, with tales from his youth and vivid metaphors that had the grandkids listening eagerly. But then, slowly, those stories got shorter, more fragmented, and often he would start a sentence but could not finish it. Once he wanted me to get that thing for taking medicine. He pointed at a glass but could not remember the word glass. His eyes looked like a child stuck in an unwinnable game. And instead of getting frustrated, he gave a strained laugh. "Well, you get it, right?" I nodded, laughing along, but my heart felt heavy, because I knew what just happened was not a temporary lapse, but a short circuit in the brain, where language that was once fluid is now breaking into fragments. According to the doctor, this is a classic symptom of language-based cognitive decline. The ability to name objects, express thoughts, and maintain a conversation gradually weakens. The terrifying part is the person knows they are losing words, and they feel confused, awkward, even ashamed. They choose silence to avoid revealing that deficit. And as the silence lengthens, the communication between them and their family also fades, like a once tight rope now being loosened, knot by knot. If you start to notice your loved one speaking less, or responding with simple, repetitive phrases, or avoiding answers, please do not assume they are uninterested or being difficult. They are searching for words. They are fighting a void inside their head, and the only thing you can do is be patient, maintain a gentle gaze, and give them enough time to find their own voice again. Because every time they still try to speak is a time they have not given up, and we should not abandon them on that journey either. Number 3, he lost interest in the hobbies he once deeply loved. One of the things that made me realize my father was no longer himself was not what he forgot, but when he lost interest in the things that once brought him joy. The man who once spent hours meticulously caring for every orchid in the backyard, carefully noting each seasonal bloom, suddenly abandoned the entire garden. The precious orchids withered while he sat inside, his gaze drifting aimlessly outside without any reaction. I asked, "Aren't you going to water the orchids anymore?" He just shook his head, saying softly, "There's nothing to care for." That sentence left me speechless, not because the plants were dying, but because a person's spirit was fading. According to the geriatrician, a loss of interest, especially in hobbies that were once deeply cherished, is a sad but very clear sign in the progression of cognitive decline. When the brain regions that control motivation, emotion, and memory no longer work in harmony, the feeling of pleasure also gradually extinguishes. Everything that once made them happy, music, sports, plants, friends, becomes faded, as if it is no longer relevant. My father used to love writing. He had a thick notebook where he would copy down beautiful sentences and reflections on life after every book he read. But then, that notebook was closed. I do not know when. One day I opened it and saw the very last entry was a quote, "When the mind departs, all that remains is a shell." I do not know when he wrote it, but it felt like a silent farewell. If you see a loved one no longer caring about the things they once loved, do not think they are lazy or tired of life. Understand that inside them, what was once a fire is slowly dying out. And your job is not to relight it for them, but to sit beside them, patiently rekindling each tiny spark. Bring them closer to the familiar. Play that old song again. Reminisce about a trip from long ago, not to force them to remember, but to remind them you are still here, ready to walk with them no matter how far they recede. If you're still with me and these insights are resonating, just drop a 3 in the comments to let me know. And if you're not subscribed yet, please consider hitting that button and the bell so you don't miss what's next. Your support truly helps us create more meaningful content like this. Number 4, a disrupted biological clock has him awake at night, sleeping by day. For many years, my father was always the first one up in our house. He would make coffee at 5 a.m., do some light exercises outside, then turn on the radio for the local news. But recently, everything turned upside down. During the day, he would sleep right through until noon, and when night fell, after the whole house was dark, he would get up and pace back and forth, sometimes opening the door to the yard in the cold. At first, we thought it was temporary insomnia, but after weeks with no change, the doctor informed us. My father's circadian rhythm was disrupted, a common sign in people with cognitive decline. The doctor explained that the human brain has an internal biological clock, controlling feelings of sleepiness, wakefulness, hunger, body temperature. When brain function begins to decline, that clock also loses its rhythm. This makes the person prone to confusing day and night, being awake when they should be resting, and feeling exhausted during hours they should be alert. Not only does this disrupt sleep, but it also causes mood swings, irritability, disorientation, and increases the risk of falls when moving around at night. I remember one time, around 2 a.m., I heard the kitchen door open. Going downstairs, I found my dad rummaging through the cabinets, looking for lunch. When I said gently, "It's nighttime now, Dad," he looked at me, confused, then sighed. "Why does it feel like it's been bright forever, son?" My heart ached, not because he was awake, but because he had lost his sense of time. If your loved one starts staying up late, sleeping all day, or showing signs of a disordered schedule, do not just think it is old age or regular insomnia. It could be a whisper from inside the brain that the biological clock is malfunctioning. And when that clock is off beat, the entire body, mind, and emotions become tangled too. Help them with small things. Keep fixed meal times. Let plenty of natural light into the house during the day, and create a quiet space at night. It is not easy to get them back into a familiar rhythm, but every gentle act of care can also be a heartbeat reminding them there is still an embrace trying to keep them anchored in reality. Number 5. Misusing medication and forgetting doses is making his condition worse. The final sign, and the one that truly terrified me, was that my father began taking his medicine incorrectly or forgetting to take it at the right time. He used to be so organized. His pill box was pre-sorted with compartments for each day, and he always double-checked it every morning. But then I started finding pills left over in yesterday's slot, while today's was empty. Once he took 2 doses in one afternoon because he forgot he had already taken it a few hours before. According to his geriatrician, forgetting doses, taking the wrong medicine, or confusing one pill with another is a direct consequence of declining memory and information processing skills. But what is more significant is that its impact does not stop at just forgetting one pill. For an older adult, just one incorrect dose can cause dangerous complications. A drop in blood pressure, rapid heart rate, dizziness, even loss of consciousness. And when the brain is already weakened, these disruptions only worsen the existing cognitive decline. I vividly remember one afternoon when my father suddenly became lethargic, not recognizing me when I entered the room. I panicked, thinking it was a mini-stroke. But after rushing him to the emergency room, the doctor told us he had mistakenly taken a sleeping pill instead of his blood pressure medication, just because the 2 pills looked similar. That was the moment I realized my father could no longer manage his own medication. And without gentle supervision, that mistake could become a disaster. If you have a loved one who manages their own medication daily, pay attention to the small signs: leftover or missing pills, their confusion when mentioning drug names, or not remembering if they have taken them. And do not hesitate to reset the entire process, from using an automatic dispenser, setting alarms, to having someone remind them. This is not about taking away their independence. It is about protecting them from the very things they can no longer control. Because sometimes the thing that makes a person age faster is not their years, but the pills they no longer remember how to use, and the silence of family members who did not notice in time. Looking back on this whole journey, I cannot help but feel my throat tighten. From the small initial signs, like my dad no longer paying attention to his routine, not finding the words to speak, or growing silent about his old hobbies, to the quiet but serious changes like sleep disruption and medication mix-ups. It all showed me one thing clearly. Cognitive decline does not arrive like a storm, but like a fog, thin, light, but gradually blanketing every part of a life. But thanks to the 5 things the geriatrician shared, I stopped doubting, stopped blaming old age or a change in personality. I began to understand, and I began to walk alongside him. No longer hoping for my dad to go back to how he was, but just trying to hold on to him day by day in the gentlest and most correct way possible. If you are living with or caring for an elderly loved one, I hope you will look more closely at the small signs. Do not wait until everything is glaringly obvious to act, because on this journey, the patient often does not know they are falling. You are the one who feels that slope most clearly. Start with something simple. Write down the changes you notice. Talk to a doctor. Listen more and talk less. Do not try to fix them. Accompany them, because in the moment they forget the world, you are still the one who remembers. and your memory will be the place where they are kept the longest. If what I have shared has touched you, please leave a comment with the number 5 below. Or tell me about your loved one. What are you seeing? What are you doing to be there for them? Those shares not only help me, but may help many others who are quietly walking this same path. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you found this content helpful, do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can continue these meaningful conversations about health, memory, and family. And I will see you in the next video.